Bombshell. A Democratic socialist could soon lead the financial capital of the world. What Zohran Mamdani's shocking win means for New York, for the Democratic Party, and for how to defeat Donald Trump. Welcome to the No Spin Zone. Graphs Grievances starts right now. The home of Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, and the country's largest investment banks could soon be governed for the first time ever by a self-identified Democratic socialist. In a stunning upset, New York City Democratic primary voters chose Zohran Mamdani, a 33-year-old assembly member from Queens and member of the Democratic Socialists of America, as their preferred candidate for mayor. And not only did he win, he crushed a field of 10 rivals. His closest competition, none other than former three-term governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. That's right, Cuomo, the scion of New York political royalty, the once rumored presidential hopeful who led in nearly every early poll and who entered this race backed by the Democratic establishment, big business, and a $30 million avalanche of outside spending, just lost to a grassroots progressive with a shoestring budget, a thin resume, and a joyful populist message. While the final winner hasn't officially been declared due to the city's ranked choice voting system, Cuomo didn't wait. He conceded, and with that, Mamdani is poised to become the first Muslim mayor in New York City history, and one of the most unlikely figures ever to rise to the top of Gotham's political ladder. Let's talk about Cuomo for a moment, because the story of his defeat says just as much about the future of the Democratic Party as Mamdani's rise does. Cuomo entered this race with every structural advantage imaginable. He had name recognition, the party machine, establishment donors, and endorsements from the likes of former President Bill Clinton, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and South Carolina Democratic Representative Jim Clyburn. He led every early poll. He raised more money than all of his opponents combined. His super PAC spent $25 million blanketing the airwaves in New York with attacks on Mamdani. And still, he lost. Why? Because Democratic voters are tired of political bullies. And Cuomo, whatever you think of his politics, is a bully. He governed through intimidation. He treated staff like collateral damage, and worst of all, he sexually harassed at least 13 women over the course of his governorship, according to the Biden Justice Department's civil rights investigation. That DOJ report found Cuomo repeatedly subjected women to, quote, non-consensual sexual activity, ogling, and gender-based nicknames. It also found that top Cuomo aides retaliated against 4 of the women who came forward. Let's be clear, this wasn't just Me Too era reputational damage. This was sustained, documented abuse from the most powerful man in New York State, and an attempt by him and his allies to cover it up. Cuomo resigned in disgrace in 2021 and then spent the next 3 years gaslighting the public, insisting he had done absolutely nothing wrong. This mayoral campaign was Cuomo's attempt at a comeback, but New Yorkers weren't interested. Now, contrast that with Mamdani, a little-known legislator born in Uganda, raised in Queens, who knocked off an incumbent in a 2020 assembly race and spent the next 4 years pushing bold, often ignored legislation in Albany. Of the 20-some bills he introduced, only 3 have become law, and none were major. But that's not the point here. The point is, Mamdani ran for mayor with a clear, consistent message about affordability, fairness, and building a city where people don't just survive, they are able to thrive. He proposed free buses, free childcare, publicly owned grocery stores, a rent freeze for rent-stabilized apartments. He embraced big, redistributive policies funded by taxes on the ultra-wealthy. And while I don't agree with many of his policies, there's no denying the clarity and positivity of his campaign. He didn't run a grievance campaign. He ran a joyful one. You could see it in his social media videos, in his community engagement, in his impromptu plunges into the icy waters of Coney Island. He wasn't telling voters they were doomed without him. He was telling them they deserved more. That energy translated into real momentum. Mamdani wasn't just winning over the base, he expanded it. Yes, he dominated with young people and progressives, but he also exceeded expectations in working class Black and Hispanic neighborhoods, and even carried some affluent, older, whiter districts that Cuomo had been counting on. This wasn't just a progressive win, it was a coalition win. Cuomo's strategy boiled down to fear. Warn voters that Mamdani was too radical, too anti-Israel, too risky. Claim that only Cuomo had the brute force leadership needed to steer New York City through a second Trump term. Flood the zone with attack ads and lean on high-profile endorsements. But fear without hope is a losing formula. And Cuomo never offered a hopeful vision for the future. He offered doom and himself as the only solution. Voters didn't buy it. Mamdani didn't win because he convinced voters to embrace democratic socialism. He won because he convinced them he cares, because he listens, because he seems like a fundamentally decent person who wants to make life better for regular people. That may sound simple, but in our politics right now, it's actually rare. Viewers of this channel probably know that politically I'm more aligned with Andrew Cuomo than I am with Mamdani. I believe in a vibrant private sector. I think many of Mamdani's economic plans are unworkable. I think taxing the rich into oblivion will backfire and drive jobs out of the city. And I think many of his proposals, free everything, publicly run everything, just don't exactly work. But I've come to believe more than ever that character matters most. Because good character leads to honest dialogue, collaborative problem solving, and trust. And if we've learned anything over the last decade from Trump, from Eric Adams, from Andrew Cuomo, it's that charisma without character is a disaster. One of the most polarizing aspects of Mamdani's candidacy has been his outspoken criticism of Israel. He has supported the BDS movement, defended controversial pro-Palestinian slogans like globalize the intifada, and refused to say whether Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. These positions are controversial, and they've alienated many Jewish New Yorkers. But Mamdani has also made clear there is no place for anti-Semitism in New York. He pledged to increase funding to combat hate crimes and has repeatedly distinguished, rightly, between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, Cuomo offered blanket support for Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is seen by many Democrats, not just on the far left, as an authoritarian figure more interested in holding on to power than securing peace. So, what can Democrats across the country learn from all of this? First, you can't beat Donald Trump with a Democrat who reminds people of Donald Trump. Cuomo was tough, combative, and scandal-ridden. But Trump already has that lane covered. If Democrats try to outmuscle the bully, they lose. Second, it's still the economy, stupid. Mamdani, for all his ideological baggage, understood what voters care about: rent, childcare, transportation, groceries. He didn't talk down to people. He met them where they live, at the kitchen table. Democrats need much more of that. Third, authenticity cuts across all lines: age, race, income, ideology. Voters can tell when someone believes what they are saying. They can tell when someone is in it for them, not for themselves. Mamdani felt real. Cuomo felt calculated. And finally, you don't need to be perfect to be inspiring. Mamdani isn't running a flawless campaign. His platform is full of proposals that will be negotiated, modified, even rejected. But he's offering something people can believe in. Now, this race isn't over. Mamdani still faces a general election in November, where he's likely to compete against sitting Mayor Eric Adams, now running as an independent, and possibly Andrew Cuomo, who hasn't totally ruled out a third-party bid. New York is a solidly Democratic city. Democrats outnumber Republicans 6-1. But general elections are messier, turnout is lower, and Mamdani's opponents will have plenty of ammunition. Still, win or lose, Mamdani's rise already matters. He's proven that, at least in New York's Democratic primary, voters are hungry for someone who tells the truth, connects with real people, and is not a bully. That doesn't mean the entire Democratic Party needs to lurch to the left. It means the party needs to move towards something deeper, towards integrity, towards candidates who don't treat public office like a personal brand, towards optimism, towards trust, towards basic decency. Because when all is said and done, that's what actually matters and what actually wins. Thank you for watching Graph's Grievances. Let me know what you think. Please consider supporting my channel via the Venmo link below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and join me tomorrow for more.